What is up, guys? TopTierYugioh here, and today I've got a brand new Eldlich deck profile for you guys, and this time it's a Dogmatika Synchro Eldlich deck profile, which I know sounds crazy, but trust me, it's absolutely amazing because the Dogmatika engine adds more starters to the standard Synchro Eldlich deck, which makes it more consistent while also synergizing with it very well by giving you new ways to get your Golden Lord and Golden Lands into the graveyard to use their effects as well, while also giving you more searchable defense in case the combo gets stopped. And so the Dogmatika engine just does so much, and so I think you guys are going to really love it. I've been loving it and having so much fun with this list. But before getting started, I am actually going to start with a few combos just to show you how the deck works, a few different interactions, and then that's going to help make a lot of the card choices make more sense when I get into the actual list. But if you do just want to see the list, feel free to skip ahead, no big deal. But let's go ahead and get into these combos. They're actually really awesome. Alright, so moving into this first combo, all we're going to need is one copy of Jet Synchron, one copy of Nadir's Servant, which is the new Dogmatika card, and then two things to discard. These can be anything, but obviously it's nice when you have your engine cards to discard, so that's one thing. But if you're unfamiliar with the Nadir Servant card or some of the other Dogmatika cards, what Nadir Servant does is that you can send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and then add one Dogmatika monster or Fallen of Albaz from your deck to your hand, or graveyard to your hand, that has attack less than or equal to what you send to the graveyard from the extra deck. Then, for the rest of the turn, you can't special summon from the extra deck, and you can only activate one per turn. And so this is really good because it allows you to search any of your Dogmatika monsters while also sending something from extra deck to the grave. And we play a bunch of cards in the extra deck that get effects when sent to the graveyard, and so that gives us a lot of utility coming out of this card. Utility from both the main deck and the extra deck, and so this is going to be a really cool play. However, because of that restriction that you can't special summon from the extra deck after it resolves, it does mean that we have to always do our Jet Synchron plays or our Link and combo plays first. And so for this combo, we're going to start by normal summoning Jet Synchron, and then really from here it's going to be similar to your standard Jet Synchron combo, but we'll get into the differences near the end. So I'm just going to run through this really quickly. So Jet Synchron, go into Link Haribo, activate Jet Synchron's effect, discarding one of your random cards. Bring back your Jet Synchron, link both of those. This should be in the main phase, by the way. Link both of those into a copy of Needle Fiber. Then you use Needle Fiber's effect, special summon O-Lion from the deck. Now we go Needle Fiber into Link Cross. Link Cross effect, summon 2 tokens. This is just standard combo right here. Synchro your token and O-Lion into a Metal Marcher. Do not use O-Lion's effect, which we're going to talk about later. Use Metal Marcher's effect to revive the O-Lion. Then from here, we can link the Metal Marcher and the token into a Herald of the Arclight, which is going to be protecting us pretty much throughout the rest of this combo. Just a generally amazing card. Now we can link the Link Cross and the O-Lion into second copy of Needle Fiber. A lot of times you'll see people playing Barricade Borg Blocker instead, but we're going to talk about that when we get into the actual deck list. I'll discuss why I'm playing the second copy of Needle Fiber over Barricade Borg Blocker, but either one really works. Also use the O-Lion effect to summon the token. Now you use the token and Needle Fiber to go into your Auroradon, and then we can use Auroradon's effect on summon to summon 3 tokens, 3 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens. Then we tribute 2 of them, special summon the second copy of O-Lion from the deck. Where is the O-Lion? Oh, here it is. Alright, yep, summon second O-Lion from the deck. Now we can synchro summon all of these into a Borreload Savage Dragon. Savage Dragon effect. Whoa, that was weird. Savage Dragon effect to equip the Auroradon. And now from here, we're pretty much done with our Synchro combo. But again, having this Nadir Servant on top of that and access to the Dogmatika engine makes it so much better. And so from here, we can go ahead and activate our Nadir Servant, and we can use that to send Shaddoll Apkallone from the extra deck to the graveyard in order to add a copy of Ecclesia to our hand. And so now from here, because Shaddoll Apkallone was sent from or not sent from the extra deck to the graveyard, but sent from anywhere to the graveyard, you can activate Apkallone's effect. And so Apkallone's effect is that when sent to the graveyard, if I can get the effect on here, oh my god. Alright, yeah. When Apkallone is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Shaddoll card from your deck to your hand and then discard a card. And so we can use this effect to add a copy of Shaddoll Schism, another new Rise of the Duelist card, from our deck to our hand. So we can add Schism, and then we have to discard a card, and that's where that second random card comes in hand. But this is really useful because it allows you to get more cards out of your hand if you need it to. So if you need to get a Golden Lord into the grave, more Golden Land cards, then this is going to be another way for you to do that outside of just having Jet Synchron and Magician Souls. So there is a bunch of synergy there. But now from here, we'll talk about Schism later for sure, but from here, we have the Ecclesia in hand. And so Ecclesia, the effect is that, first, it can't be destroyed by battle from monsters that were summoned from the extra deck. That's cool. But then also, if a monster that's special summoned from the extra deck is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then if it's normal or special summon, you can activate the effect to add a Dogmatika card from your deck to your hand, except for itself. And then it has the restriction that afterwards you cannot summon from the extra deck, which is completely fine because Nadir's Servant already had that same restriction, and then we also can't link summon because of Auroradon. So we're already under a bunch of restrictions, but we don't even care at this point because the Dogmatika engine is still able to function, still able to give us better boards and give us more disruptions on top of that. So that's completely fine. So we're going to start by special summoning the Ecclesia from our hand and then activating the effect. And then with this effect, we have a couple of options actually. And so we have the option between searching, let's see, Dogmatika Fleurdelis, and then we can also search Dogmatika Punishment, which is the new trap card. And so I'm just going to read through the effects if you're not familiar with them. And so Fleurdelis has the effect that during the main phase, if a monster summoned from the extra deck is on the field, it's a quick effect that you can special summon it from your hand. And then if you control another Dogmatika monster, you can negate the effects of one face-up monster on the field until the end of the turn. And so note that this doesn't target, which makes it really useful. But then also, when your Dogmatika monsters declare an attack, you can make all Dogmatika monsters you control gain 500, and you can only use each effect once per turn. And so this is a form of quick effect negation because we have that Ecclesia on board and a monster from the extra deck. So we could just summon this on the opponent's turn, negate one of their monsters. Very valuable. Now the other card, the trap, is you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, send a monster with equal or higher attack from your extra deck to the grave, and if you do so, destroy that monster. And then until the end of the next turn, you can't summon from the extra deck. And so we have two different forms of disruption here. We have monster negation, and then we have monster destruction. And so it's really up to you which one you want to search. The only downside to either of them is that Fleurdelis requires you to still have a monster on board to use. So like, if your opponent gets rid of your Ecclesia, then you don't have a way to summon your Fleurdelis. And then punishment, it cuts you off of the extra deck until the end of your next turn. And so you have to really be careful with that effect because you don't want to lock yourself out of the extra deck if you need to go into it. So really you can search either one, just have to be cognizant of the downsides of either. And so for the sake of this combo, let's go with punishment. Sure. So we'd add punishment to our hand, and now we can set both Shaddoll Schism and Dogmatika Punishment. So on our opponent's turn, they're going to have to play through Herald of the Arclight, Borreload Savage Dragon, Dogmatika Punishment, and then on top of that, Shaddoll Schism, which allows us to fusion summon a Shaddoll monster by banishing stuff from our graveyard or field in order to summon Shaddoll stuff. And so we can actually, on our opponent's turn, we can use Apkallone and Linkuriboh, which is dark. We can use this to summon a Winda on the opponent's turn, which is absolutely insane. Like, I don't know how or what any deck is going to do against this board. This is incredibly difficult for decks to deal with. 2 Omni Negates, can't special summon more than once, destroy some monsters, and then on top of that, Schism has another effect that when you fusion summon a monster, if your opponent has a monster with the same attribute, you can send it to the graveyard. So it can be potentially another disruption if they started off with a dark monster. So this is an absolutely incredible board that most decks just have no answer to. So this is going to be really tough for a lot of decks to out. But now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what about hand traps? So now let's talk about what happens if the opponent has hand traps. And spoiler alert, it doesn't matter. So let's actually go back a bit to the point where, let's say when we summon Needle Fiber, that's a big choke point. So we're going to rewind this back a little bit to the Needle Fiber part of this combo. Alright, so let's look at what happens if our Needle Fiber gets negated. So if they have an Ash, Veiler, Imperm on Needle Fiber, what do we do from this case? And so in this scenario, it still doesn't really matter that much because we still have an extra deck monster on board, and so we'd still be able to special summon Ecclesia and pretty much continue with the rest of the play. So we would still just activate the Nadir Servant, using that to dump App Cologne to the graveyard, and then searching a copy of Ecclesia. And then next we would use App Cologne's effect to add Shaddoll Schism to hand. Then we discard our random card. And again, because we have an extra deck monster on board, we can just special summon Ecclesia, use Ecclesia to once again either search Fleurdelis or to search Punishment. Let's go with Fleurdelis this time just to mix things up. Then we can set our Shaddoll Schism. And then on the opponent's turn, they're going to have to deal with Winda, because we still have the materials engraved, we still have the Link Rebo, we still have the App Cologne, so we can still summon Winda, so they're going to have to deal with that, as well as a Fleurdelis. So this is going to be very difficult for boards to deal with. Even if they have that negation, even if they're able to stop the Needle Fiber, we're still going to be able to end with multiple forms of negation. So again, that's one of the things that makes this deck so strong. It's able to play through hand traps. And now, the one hand trap that does actually stop this though is if they have Gamma, because Gamma both negates the effect and removes the monster from the field. But that's just one reason why Gamma is so insane in this format. But even then, we're still able to make a play. And so if that were to happen, let's just rewind a little bit more again. So let's say this time they have Gamma. So we activate Needle Fiber's effect. And let me just add everything back to hand. So we activate Needle Fiber's effect and then negate it with Gamma. So now the Needle Fiber is destroyed. And so we don't have a way to... We don't have an extra deck monster on board, so we're not going to be able to summon Ecclesia. So now what do we do in this scenario? Well, we can still play because Nadir Servant is an insane card. And so instead now what we do, instead of dumping App Cologne, we can dump Titaniclad, the Ash Dragon, and that's going to allow us to get into our Dogmatika engine. So we do still have the option of getting the Shaddoll Schism, because we would still be able to get everything else in the graveyard, but we'd be ending on just Winda. I think this play is actually a little bit better. Like, I mean, Winda's good obviously, but this play is also good. So we can use Servant to dump Titaniclad, and then search Ecclesia. So now in the end phase of this turn, we can activate Ash Dragon's other effect, or the main effect really, is that when it's in the graveyard, because it was sent there this turn, you can add to your hand or special summon one Fallen Avalabaz or a Dogmatika monster from your deck. And so what we can do in this scenario is to special summon a copy of Ecclesia. Let's see, where is it in our deck? There we go. So we can special summon our copy of Ecclesia, and then Ecclesia can search the Fleurdelis on the board. So now we still have a form of disruption, we still have the Ecclesia, and we still have Fleurdelis, so we have that disruption. And then we also have another copy of another copy of Ecclesia to follow up with on our next turn. So we have a couple of different plays here, so that's definitely one option. And again, the other option that you still could do with the Nadir Servant is, just like we had been doing in the other plays, is to dump App Cologne, use App Cologne to get to Schism, then just set Schism. And you have Schism being able to get into your Shaddoll Winda. So that's also an option. So you have a bunch of plays, even if your opponent has Gamma. So it's like if they have Ash, Veiler, Imperm, you still end up with a pretty good board. If they have Gamma, you still end with a pretty good board. Now the last hand trap I want to talk about here for this combo is Nibiru. And so let's actually look at that scenario. Alright, so let's look at how we can play through Nibiru with this combo. And so we're going to start off from this point where we're getting to Needle Fiber. And same as always, we're going to use Needle Fiber's effect to special summon a copy of O-Lion from the deck. And so from here, we would use we would use Linkross by using the Needle Fiber as material, activating Linkross's effect to summon 2 tokens. There's a little bit of lag here. Now we can Synchro Summon into Metal Marcher using the token and the O-Lion. and then activate Metal Marcher's effect. Whoa. Then activate Metal Marcher's effect to revive the copy of O-Line. So this is pretty much when the opponent's going to Nibiru, this is the best point to do it. So let's say we go ahead and get nibbed right here. So we would lose our whole board. And then we would get one token from Nibiru, and then a second token from the O-Line. So what we can do from here, now that we have these two different tokens, is we can just link both of these tokens away into an IP Masquerena. And now that we have an extra deck monster on the board, as well as Servant, we're going to be able to continue through our plays because we can special summon Ecclesia now. And so, same as we would do before, we would go through the play, we would activate Nadir Servant, dump App Cologne to the graveyard, and then we can use that to search a copy of Ecclesia. App Cologne's going to be searching Schism. And then we're going to discard the random card. Now from here we can go ahead and special summon Ecclesia, using Ecclesia's effect to once again search for whatever you want to search for. We can go for Fleurdelis or we can go for Punishment, either one. And now once again, we just set both of our traps and we end on a pretty good board. Even through Nibiru, we're going to have multiple forms of disruptions. And so we're going to have Schism to be able to go on the window on the opponent's turn. We're either going to have Punishment or Fleurdelis for an interruption. But we also have this IP Masquerena, which can be very key here, because we can also go into Unicorn for a third disruption. So we can end up with 3 disruptions through Nibiru, one of which being a Winda. Or what we can also do, something that I like to do a lot, I think is pretty neat, is we can also use this to go into a copy of, let's see, a copy of Selene. And then, of course, this is obviously only going to work if there are enough spell cards between your graveyard and your opponent's grave. And we only started with the one Nadir Servant, so we only have one in this case. But let's say we started out with Nadir Servant and maybe we had a Tuning. So that could be 2 spells, the opponent plays the third, and maybe we also have like a Cursed Eldland or something. So it's definitely possible and does come up, but we can go into a Selene, and then because Selene is a quick effect, we can use this to revive Ecclesia, if there are enough spells, of course. So we can use that to revive Ecclesia because Ecclesia is a spellcaster, and then we can use Ecclesia to search Fleurdelis, and then also still have more forms of disruption. So you can use that IP to go into a Unicorn or to go into Selene if you have enough spells. So that can be a really cool play as well. So again, the whole point of this is to show that this combo, this two card combination of Jet Synchron and Nadir Servant can really allow you to play through almost every single hand trap. You can play through Ash, Imperm, Valor. You can use Type of Negation on the Needle Fiber. You can play through Gamma on Needle Fiber. You can play through Nib. You can play through any hand trap. And that's one of the reasons why I love this combo so much and this deck so much, because it's able to play through hand traps a lot better than the standard Synchro Eldlich deck can. But now I want to show you another combo, something that you can do without Jet Synchron, and this combo is really going to show how much synergy there is between the Dogmatika engine and the Eldlich engine. Alright, so for this next combo, all we're going to need is 1 copy of Cursed Eldland and then 1 copy of Nadir Servant. And once again, this is going to really show the synergy between these two engines because we're still going to be able to end on a strong board, even without having to do our full, synchro combo. And so inherently, this is going to play through Nibiru because we're not going to summon very much at all, but still end on a good board. And so, for this combo, we're going to start by activating our Cursed Eldland. Then we activate the effect, pay 8, feel great. Shout out to the DP grinder. So we use that effect to add a copy of one of our golden lands to our hand. So we can add, let's say a Conquistador. So now what we can do from here is activate our copy of Nadir Servant. And we're going to use this to send a copy of Elder Entity Intis to the graveyard. And then we can use the Nadir to search a copy of Ecclesia. And so now that Intis is sent to the graveyard, it can trigger Intis's effect. And so Intis has the effect that when it's sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. And so we can use that effect to target our Cursed Eldland and destroy it. And then when Cursed Eldland is sent from the Spell and Trap card zone to the graveyard, we can send an Eldlich or Golden Land from our Spell and Trap Eldlich or Golden Land Spell or Trap from our deck to the graveyard. And so we can use this to send like the other one. So we added a Conquistador. We can use this to send Wakero to the graveyard. Or we can send Conquistador too if we like just don't care about those, but I would send the Wakero here. So then now we can go ahead and normal summon our Ecclesia, activate Ecclesia's effect. So once again, we get that option of searching Fleurdelis or by searching Punishment. Either one really works here, but Punishment's probably better in my opinion in this case, simply because you can also use the send like the Ash Dragon, for example, from your extra deck to the graveyard, and then you can get more of your Dogmatika engine going. Whereas if you just search Fleurdelis, you're not really getting more into your engine, you're just getting that one disruption. But from here, what we can do is set our copy of Conquistador, set our Punishment, and then in the end phase, we can banish our copy of Wakero, and we use that to set a Scarlet. And so with that, we're going to have access to Golden Lord, which makes the Conquistador live. And so we're going to have Scarlet Conquistador as interruption. We're going to have that Punishment as interruption. They were potentially going to be getting a follow-up from Punishment sending the Ash Dragon from extra deck to the graveyard as well. So we're getting multiple disruptions, follow-up plays, and just a ton of advantage here. And all of this off of 2 cards. And so this is just a very easy way that these engines interact well with each other. But the same thing works even if you don't have Cursed Eldland. It also works if you just have any 2 Golden Land cards and then Nadir Servant. Because what you can always just do is still go for that App Cologne play. So if you don't have Cursed, this also works if you have multiple Golden Lands. They don't have to be different, they can actually be the same too. And the combo is going to be super similar. We can just set one of them onto the field and then do the exact same play. And then do the exact same play and then use Intis to destroy the set Golden Land. That's gonna search a Scarlet in the Yin phase, and then we'd have Scarlet Conquistador plus whatever we're gonna be getting from the Dogmatika engine. The other thing we could do is we could keep it in hand, and instead of sending Intis, we could also send App Cologne, and then we can add Schism to our hand and then dump the Golden Land from our graveyard. That way we're actually getting an extra card as well, instead of having to just simply destroy our own card. And then there's also value in keeping your Intis in the extra deck, so that when you use your Punishment, you can dump Intis potentially and destroy 2 cards on the field. So in this type of combo, I would actually dump App Cologne with the Servant and then search Schism. This is off of the Servant. You would search Schism and then discard the 1 Golden Land that you want to use in the graveyard. So there's a few different ways that you can do this. Pretty much as long as you have Servant and then some way to get to your Eldlich engine, you're going to be able to make this work. And so there's a lot of really cool plays you can do in this deck with Servant and your Golden Land cards. Now you do want to note that the Schism isn't going to be live in this case because we don't have any other dark monsters in the graveyard to get the Winda. We do have the Ecclesia on board, but doing that would only get us to a Construct, which isn't going to be enough to really disrupt our opponents. But then also, or I shouldn't say but also, but if we do have access to another monster like a Magician's Souls, or any level 1 to get us to Link Karibo, that could be a dark to get into the graveyard for Schism's effect. So it depends on the rest of the hand, but if we just have the Golden Lands and the Nadir Servant, this is pretty much the best we could do, and Schism's going to be dead until you do actually draw into another dark monster, or get to a dark monster throughout your combos. Now, you do have Punishment, and you can use Punishment to send a dark monster like Titanic-Cloud to the graveyard, and that could work. But then the Punishment's going to lock you out of the extra deck for pretty much 2 turns. And so even if you do that, you're not going to be able to use the Schism immediately. You'll have to wait until your opponent's next turn, because it'll lock you out of the extra deck for your opponent's first turn. Then you'll be locked out for your next turn. And then on your opponent's next main phase is when you're going to be able to use Schism. And so that's going to be a long wait. Ideally, you don't have to do that, but it's something that probably will come up in games. I mean, it does, but yeah. Hopefully you just draw into a dark monster. Then you can end with Winda, Scarlet, Conquistador, and Punishment. That would be perfect, but hey, this is still a really strong combo that allows you to end with multiple disruptions without needing to do your combo, and so it really isn't that susceptible to cards like Nibiru or other combo stoppers. And really, it kind of forces your opponent to have to stop the Nadir Servant, and if they don't, everything just kind of steamrolls out of control. And so this is definitely a really strong combo, and I hope this shows some of the synergies between these 2 engines. Like, how you can use Nadir's Servant to discard golden lands from your hand to the grave, to get cards from your field to the grave. It really just, you get a lot of utility out of that extra deck in this variant. That makes it just such an amazing addition to the deck, as well as being something that you can add on top of your standard combos to end on more powerful boards such as Savage Dragon, Herald, Winda, and then still having multiple other disruptions as well, like Fleurdelis or Punishment. So just absolutely insane combos, but I think you guys are ready now to get into the profile, and I hope I'm not making you guys wait too long for the profile. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so for this profile, we're just going to start with the Synchro package. We have 3 copies of Tuning, 3 copies of Jet Synchron, and then 2 copies of O-Lion. This is pretty much the standard version of the combo at this point. It conserves the most space, which gives us more for our Dogmatika engine. Then we have 2 copies of Lord, obviously. Then for the Dogmatika engine, we have 3 copies of Nadir's Servant, the other starter card in the deck, and as you guys saw, it really just enables some insane plays because you're able to send stuff from the extra deck to the graveyard. 2 copies of Ecclesia, 1 Fleurdelis, and then 1 Dogmatika Punishment. And so I went with this engine, like with only 2 Ecclesias, because unlike Nadir's Servant, Ecclesia isn't really a starter card, it's more of an extender, and so you really don't always want to draw her. I mean, she's not bad to draw, but she's only going to be good once you're able to get into your combo, and if you just draw it with your Golden Land cards, it's okay, like you can normal summon and search, but it's obviously not the best. And so I'm only playing 2 copies of that to conserve a bit of space. Like, I could see you definitely playing 3, but we're already over 40 cards, and so I felt that 2 was like a good number here. And so then only 1 copy of Fleurdelis, because this is probably the closest thing to a brick we have in the entire deck, because by itself it doesn't work with your Synchro package because you don't have a Dogmatika. And then if you just have your Dogmatikas, it's like you don't want to draw it because you can just search it. Then if you have your Eldlich cards, you can't use it either because you don't have an extra deck monster or a Dogmatika card. And so really, like, Fleur is a card that you never want to draw, you only want to search. However, I am considering playing 2 copies though, because it is something that you can send to the graveyard to summon Magician's Soul, because it's a level 8 spellcaster. And so because of this, we actually don't have to play any other Magician's Souls target. And so playing Fleurdelis in the Dogmatika engine gets rid of a brick, so it makes the deck more consistent in that way as well. So it's more consistent because you have more starters, and more consistent because you have less bricks. And while Ecclesia, you could say, is a brick sometimes, like it definitely is, it's not always a brick. And like comparing Ecclesia to the Apprentice Magician, it's like Apprentice Magician is sometimes an extender if you draw it. Ecclesia is extra defense even if you don't. And I think that makes it significantly better than Apprentice Magician. It just serves a better role, and it serves that role more often than Apprentice Magician does. And so I was considering playing 2 though, because I want to be able to resolve souls and still be able to use Fleurdelis at times. And so I really dislike that if I use souls and then want to go into like our Dragma plays, you can't really get the maximum value out of that. And now we can always use a copy of Cyframe Lord Omega to shuffle back the Fleurdelis, but I still think that gets kind of clunky. Like, you don't want to have to do that to use it. And so that's why I'm considering 2. And so let me know what you guys think about these ratios. Let me know if you think 2 copies of Fleurdelis would be better. Maybe you'd play 3 Ecclesia, and if so, what do you take out? Because space is just incredibly tight in this build. And then obviously only 1 Punishment, because again, space is so tight. However, it's just such an incredible card, being able to dump from extra deck to the graveyard, which you guys have seen is incredibly strong, but also being able to clear monsters from the board, searchable defense, blah blah blah. Incredible card, one of the sleepers of Rise of the Duelist. And then again, 3 copies of Magician's Souls. Moving on from here, we have 3 copies of Cursed Eldland, 3 copies of Conquistador, 3 copies of Walkero, 1 Black Awakening, which I chose over White Destiny because we are only playing those 2 copies of Lords. If we can't get to Lord, we still want to be able to get to Lord, and so that's why I like it over the White Destiny. 3 copies of Scarlet, 3 copies of, or that's it for the Eldlich engine. For the hand traps, we have 3 copies of Imperm, 3 copies of Ash, and then 3 copies of Valor. I think these are simply the best hand traps right now because they are all able to stop an Alistair, which is really good. They're all able to stop Needle Fiber. They're all able to stop all of the most powerful cards in the game right now, pretty much. And Imperm especially, because you're not going to lose to Called by the Grave. You're not going to lose to Triple Tactical Talents. It's just so good. Even going second, it can be your 6th card and help you break boards. And so I think Imperm at 3 is just an absolute staple right now. And then Ash and Valor are extremely versatile. Now, I will say another good option is Gamma, and you will see it in the side deck. But the only reason why I chose against Gamma here is because there's just not enough space. So like having to play Gamma would also mean having to play Driver, and that's 4 cards added to the deck versus 3, and I just felt that with us already being over 40, let's just save that space because Gamma also isn't very good going first in this deck. It's only really good going second, whereas like Ash and Valor are good going first or second. Because in this deck, it's like the opponent's not going to be using their spell and traps on your spell and traps. They're only going to be using it on your monsters. And so if you go first, Gamma's just going to be completely dead. Because like no one's going to stop a tuning. No one's going to stop a cursed Eldland. They might stop a Nadir Servant. Like they might Ash this. But you're never playing it first because of the restriction on the extra deck. And so it's like you're just never going to use Gamma on your turn going first. And so I definitely think that Gamma's better in the side deck here. And while sure you could say you could bait out an Ash with Nadir Servant, it's like if they don't Ash, then you just cut yourself off of your Synchro engine too. And so you're never going to do that. So yeah, that's why I think Gamma's better in the side deck. So we are only playing these 9 hand traps, and the final card is the 1 copy of Shaddoll Schism, which one thing I was considering as well was to move it into the side deck because it's also not very good going second. Like it's only good going first, and I really wanted some more versatility out of this deck instead of having so many cards that are only good going first or only good going second. And so Schism was a card that I felt that could potentially be moved into the side deck for that very reason, because going second, it literally does nothing. You're never going to be, you're not going to be going through that combo, and even if you do, it's like at that point, what do you need Winda for? You should already be winning anyways. And so Schism is something else I could see maybe moving into the side deck or cutting altogether if you think it's just not worth it and you want to save space both in the main deck and the side deck, or and the extra deck, I mean. And so you could either cut it or you could just move into the side deck, but I kind of like it in the main. Just going first, it just really solidifies what the deck can do, gives you a little bit more power, more auto wins, and that's always a good thing. And so that's pretty much it for the main deck. We're going to go into the extra deck now, and so for that we have 1 copy of Linkuriboh, 2 copies of Needle Fiber. We're playing 2 copies of this over 1 and 1 Barricade Blocker because I think the second Needle just gives you a little bit more versatility in case the first gets stopped. You got that access to the second one to recombo them next turn, or to just go for a different play. Like sometimes you just go into like access code and kill them. That can be a thing too. So 2 copies of Needle Fiber, 1 copy of Linkross, 1 Metal Marcher, 1 Herald of the Arclight, Auroradon, Savage Dragon. These are just all the combo cards in order that you summon them, so that's pretty obvious. Then moving on to the Dogmatika cards that I think you have to play for this variant. You play 1 App Cologne, 1 Winda, 1 Elder Entity Intis, and then 1 Psyframe Lord Omega. And so App Cologne, Winda, and Intis we all saw in the combos. App Cologne and Winda are great with each other. App Cologne gets your Schism to your hand, which lets you summon Winda. Also lets you discard your Golden Land cards, really amazing. And then Intis pops things on the field, which again, synergy with your Golden Land cards, or can be used defensively against the opponent. But then Omega is the one card that we didn't see in the combos, and what Omega does for this deck is absolutely insane because it lets you, I mean, first you can just summon it anyways, like with Ash and a Golden Land card, worst case scenario, but within your Dogmatika engine, it has so much utility because it lets you recycle your cards. And so you can, for example, say you use Magician's Souls to dump Fleurdelis, well, you can use Omega to shuffle Fleurdelis back into your deck and then search it again with an Ecclesia. Or say you run out of both of your Ecclesias, you can shuffle one of them back, search it with Servant, get more stuff going, or you can even start shuffling back your extra deck monsters. And so let's say that your combo gets stopped, well, what you can do is maybe shuffle back your Linkross, and then you still have that second Needle Fiber to still do your combo. And so it can be really good in that manner as well. And so there's so many times when we're just having access to Omega in your extra deck and in the graveyard, using those effects really helps you grind out a lot longer than a standard Synchro Eldlich would be able to. And of course, you do still have the Eldlich engine, which is great for grinding. You still are able to, you know, go through your Golden Land cards, your Lords, and still do a lot. This really makes it so much easier. And so you definitely got to play Omega in any Dogmatika version of the deck. And then finally, we have a couple of flex spots actually. So we have the 1 copy of IP Masquerena, which I mentioned earlier being very good against Nibiru. Then we have the Selene, which is something else you do off that same play. But then we also have 1 copy of Titanic Cloud, the Ash Dragon. And so this is really good for just giving you more access to your Dogmatika engine, because a lot of times what will happen is you're going to use Servant to, like, Servant's going to dump App Cologne, and that's going to get you to like your Schism and everything else. But then when you search your Punishment, Punishment gets you to your Ash Dragon. Ash Dragon will then get you to the second Ecclesia, which will get you to the floor, which will kind of get you going through your engine even more. And then from there, we can dump Omega and then start shuffling things back and reusing it all over again. And so I like the Ash Dragon in that case. Now, the problem is that we already, like, the extra deck is only 15 cards, and so there's not really space for everything. And so I think that something, a substitution that you could make is that if you think that people aren't quite playing Nibiru as often, what you could do is take out the IP Masquerena for an access code talker. Or you necessarily don't need the Ash Dragon play. You could take that out and then add back in the IP Masquerena, or you could cut both of them and have IP Masquerena Unicorn and like still access code. Like this takes away the Needle Fiber access code OTK to where you just would summon Needle Fiber, use it to summon like a Veiler, go into Celine, access code and win. It takes that away, but at least in that scenario, you still have access to IP to play through Disruption. You have Unicorn for more Disruption, and then you have the access code to OTK. Now, I do think that even when you use the IP Masquerena play, you're generally, if you have a Nadir Servant, you're always going to have something else to go into. Like, you're going to have more Disruption with that, so you don't necessarily need the Unicorn, but it's still a good option just in case. So, that's pretty much it for the extra deck. And then moving into the side deck. A lot of things I just moved to 2 ofs just to have space for some other cards to talk about, but I think for the side deck I'd be playing 3 copies of Nibiru right now, 3 copies of Gamma, just to have something to go against combo decks. These are all great going second against those type of decks. I would play 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone because it's good against Eldlich, good against a lot of decks really. I mean, it's going to be good right now, especially because you're going to be able to use it to stop your opponent's meltdowns, stop their Shaddoll Schisms if they're playing this type of deck, stop their Golden Land cards. You can use it against like Ravine or Boot if you're playing against Dragon Link. So there are a lot of ways to use Cosmic Cyclone right now that I think it's just a definite staple. Lightning Storm for going second. And then these are the cards I wanted to talk about. Well, not this because I already mentioned this, but Forbidden Droplets, Triple Tactical Talents, and Called by the Grave. I think you would side like 2 or 3 of one of these cards because all of them are good but for different reasons, and it's kind of tricky as to which one you should actually play. And so let me know what you guys think about this side deck, what you would side, what you think will be good right now. There's so many good decks right now that I think you really just have to break the format up into like combo and control. You got your Infernoble Knights, you got Adamanticators, you got Dragons. Those are your combo decks. Then you got your control decks to where you got your Invoke Dogmatikas, you got your Gurus, your Sky Strikers, your Altergeist Gurus, those type of decks. And then you got everything else, which this deck is so good you don't even have to worry about those decks. So that's pretty much where I am with the side deck right now. But once again, let me know what you guys think. With the format being so new, you can really go in a lot of different directions. Again, it's just incredibly powerful and just so consistent, so fun. I've been loving it, and I'm sure you guys will as well. And so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.